There is no cost too high. There is no action so outlandish that God will not do it in order for us to receive the fullness of God's love. And we have the fulfillment, don't we? God limited God's self and became incarnate, took our flesh, experienced our hurts and our pains. And not just that, but God in the person of Jesus did it to the extreme. Not only was he hurt, as we are sometimes hurt, but he was beaten, and he was tortured, and he was killed. Not only was he executed as a common criminal, but he was done in the most publicly and spiritually humiliating and shameful manner possible. All that, also that the love of God, the love that God has for the ones he created for his glory and made and formed, could be received. God says to Israel, to those who are locked in captivity, in feelings of hopelessness and despair, there is nothing that I won't do for you, since you are precious and you are honored in my sight. I personally love how these last 2 weeks of this sermon series, Just As I Am, has kind of played out. Because notice the myriad of words that the Bible has used in these last 2 weeks to describe you. Last week, you are awesome and you are wonderful. This week, you are precious, you are honored. And as if there was nothing more to be said, God declares to his people, because I love you. Those 4 words, they are beautiful in their simplicity. It's a verse that we don't need to describe. It's a verse that I don't need to deconstruct. We don't need to take it apart because the truth is easily felt. God says that God does all the things that God does, all the forgiveness, all the healing, all the saving, all the immersing God's self in sometimes the murkiness of our lives. God says, I do it all because I love you. As we did last week, if you need, take a moment and hear these words as they are spoken in reference to you. Precious, honored, loved. You know, we can come up with thousands upon thousands of reasons why we do not experience or why we do not feel the love of God. It's easy for us to look at ourselves and see why God couldn't or why God wouldn't love us. And true, there may be things in our life that God doesn't like. That's part of what led Israel into the exile. Sin is a real thing. It was real for Israel, and it's real for us. Yet the magnificent truth is that God's love is unshakable. After all, if there was any a time when God wouldn't love Israel, it was when they were in exile. But the truth is here for us all to hear and for us all to see, that even in the exile, even in the place of spiritual lostness, even when we feel consumed with hopelessness and despair, God declares God's love. It's a part of who Israel was. It's a part of who we are as the ones that God formed and the ones that God made. Last week we talked a bit about the voices in this world that try to declare who we are and declare who we are not. I think sadly when it comes to us feeling loved or feeling the love of God, sometimes the biggest voice that stops us from accepting that love is our own. Sometimes it's our own sadness, or it's our own guilt, or it's our own shame, or our own insecurity that continually tells that for some reason we are not loved by God. If that's the case for you, I want you to take a moment and acknowledge that voice. Identify what it is that makes you believe that you are not loved. If you had to complete the phrase, "I am not loved because," what would you say? Because I doubt? Because I sin? Because I'm insecure? Because I don't know enough? Because I'm not good enough? What is it? Acknowledge that. And then allow God to speak into that place. Hear God say to you that that is not true. Hear him quote Isaiah, "You are precious, you are honored, and you are loved." Reading from 1 John says, "This is love. Not that we were perfect, not that we loved God. This is love, that God loved you and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for you." And they are statements of fact. They are not wishes to be strived for. It's not a future prize that you need to earn. They are spoken in all reality. Just as you are, here, now, however tall you are, however small you are, whatever your hair color is or whatever your eye color is, whatever's been going on in your life, in the myriad of ways that you can describe yourself as you are, just as you are right now, you are loved. And even if it's just for the briefest of moments, be bold enough to believe it and accept it. Amen.